Look, I love a conversation about money. This show has always been a place where we investigate and compare notes on how money and our decisions around it and our different levels of access to it shape everything else in our lives. It's something we have to look straight at and be honest about in order to make smart decisions. And money is also an area of life where no matter how good our preparation, we are not in total control. Markets collapse, technology evolves, prices go up, student loan payments resume, retirement accounts grow and contract. And so as we make decisions about jobs or housing or relationships or taking any kind of risk, we have to ride these changing tides. And lately, it feels like the changes in currents have been really hard to predict and even to keep your head above. We've been hearing over the last several weeks from listeners about their current money dilemmas. Some of your questions are about a choice you have to make. Others are about managing the emotions that are coming up for you when you feel uncertain or financially unstable. I personally have been feeling a lot of this. Like, I don't know what groceries will cost next month. I don't know how the media business will look in 3 years. I don't know what AI is going to do for wage-earning work for my kids in 15 years. So we are just going to invite all that into our conversation this week. I am joined by some experts who think about money and the economy and about coping with the unknown from some really nice and different perspectives. And I love to hear what they made of your questions. And so I hope that this episode this week feels helpful and also like a personal finance and economic analysis panel that's unlike any you've heard before.
First of all, a husband is way more expensive than a cat. Let me just, I
I
feel
can
like
assure
that
you,
needs to be
being
said.
one myself, I can assure you that is 100% true.
This is Death, Sex, and Money. The show from Slate about the things we think about a lot and need to talk about more. I'm Anna Sale. I'm excited to tell you that Death, Sex, and Money is back at Rebecca Audio in New York City. We're doing a live show on June 11th at 8:30 p.m., and I want to personally invite you to come join us and be a part of the live recording. I will be interviewing award-winning actor Allison Williams from Get Out, Girls, that weird doll horror movie Megan. We're going to talk about her life, her career. It's going to be fun. Whether you are in the city on the East Coast or have just been looking for an excuse to visit New York City in June, we hope to see you there. The show is Wednesday, June 11th at 8:30 p.m. Get your tickets now at tribeccafilm.com/DSM. See you then.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
When we were thinking about which experts to invite to weigh in on your money advice questions, one person came to my mind right away. Bethel Habte is currently a personal finance coach. She writes a Substack newsletter I like a lot called Deconstructing Money. And for many years before that, she was a radio and podcast journalist. We worked together at WNYC, and even then I could tell that her approach to money was unique and refreshingly open. Like, I started hearing about this spreadsheet she made that detailed exactly how she had paid off her student loans. She was circulating it among our coworkers, many of whom were also trying to figure out their financial lives.
So this was all prompted by another piece of your show name. My father passed away in 2018, and He was an accountant and did and taxes in retirement, like worked at H&R Block for fun. And when I lost him, I realized I had to be my own person. I had to be my own financial rock, and I didn't have the tools or understanding to do that. And I felt as though there was a huge gap in my own personal finance understanding. And so when I created this system to pay off my loans systematically and figure out exactly how much of my disposable income each month I could devote to loans, I really just wanted to share that knowledge. And it ended up being a very early prototype of what I share with clients now as an accredited financial coach in training. I have 500 more hours to go out of 1,000.
Oh, halfway there.
I started in January, and I've been working with clients now and feel as though I'm handing people a set of tools that I think we all kind of feel ashamed of not knowing. We feel ashamed that no one ever sat us down and talked to us about how to manage our personal finances. And I just wanted to change that in a really practical way. And it had always been in the back of my head that I wanted to do something like this. And so I went for it. I actually, as another result of his passing, I kind of, I got in my mind that I was like, I don't know how long I have to live. I mean, that's just a fact that we all kind of have to grapple with. And so I started evaluating my life in 3-year increments. So I'd say to myself, if I die in 3 years, will I be happy with everything I've done thus far, with the life that I'm leading and the bucket list I have in my mind? And so on my bucket list was to start my own business, and on my bucket list was to help people in the same way that I figured out how to help myself, and then I wanted to pass on that knowledge. So.
Oh, that's cool. I'm going to come back to that 3-year vision that you have later in the conversation. But I also want to introduce Mark Blythe, who is a political economist and professor at Brown University. His most recent book is called Inflation, A Guide for Users and Losers. Some of us are both. In 2020, he co-wrote the book Angrynomics, which is about why people feel increasing stress and anxiety around money despite rising economic indicators. Mark, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
You are always looking at big picture stuff, but I wonder in your life with colleagues, neighbors, do people ask you how you manage your money and how they should manage their money?
All the time, and they're sorely disappointed. I mean, if there is a trend out there that you can make money on, I guarantee you I will identify it ahead of everyone else and then decide not to jump on it. It's not that I'm a contrary indicator. I'm just lazy. That's pretty much it. So, and something else I tend to do is when I think something's just crap, like crypto, for example, I understand that other people don't think it's crap, and therefore they will invest in it, and therefore it will rise in price. So therefore I should do this too. But I can't, because then I just feel like I'm a carnival barker. I just don't want to. So that it's cost me loads of money. Basically, I'm sort of far less wealthy than I should be, given what I've known, and it's entirely my own fault. So don't ask. Macro trends out 20 years. I'm your guy. What to do next week? Don't go there.
Unless you want to know what everybody else is going to be doing to earn money.
Unless you want to. Yeah, I could. If you ask me the following question, how do you think everyone else is going to make money over the next 2 years? Easy, and I guarantee you, I will not be one of them.
Okay. Rebecca Auman is also here. And I'm so glad you're part of this conversation, Rebecca. Death, Sex, and Money listeners have met you. You have been on this show before. We talked about getting in touch with intuition. You are someone whose professional background includes talking very concretely about money as a fundraiser for healthcare foundations and a company, and you advise executives now as a kind of life coach person, executive coach, but also who brings in this gift that you have of really connecting with your own intuition and helping others connect with their intuition. You identify as a practical witch. And so I want to know, Rebecca, in your work, when you're talking with people on your podcast, Voices in the River, when you're talking with people who have come to you because they are struggling with not knowing what to do or feeling stuck, how much do you find yourself talking about money?
Money is often one of the first questions, but It's not really about money. It's like money's a tool. So it's like, what do you really want? What is going to inspire you? And in 3 years, what do you want? And then how do you use that as a tool? But oftentimes money is a signal about whether you're congruent or not.
And congruent, will you define that for us, how you use that word?
Congruent, in alignment with your truth.
That's another reason I'm glad that you are in this conversation, because I think a lot of us might talk about how we go to personal finance websites or listen to economic analysts to figure out how to manage our money, and then secretly we're pulling tarot cards or reading our astrological charts. And so we need all of it. We need all of it.
Well, I think it is a both and. You need both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if you will, as we start this conversation about money dilemmas of our listeners and our own money dilemmas, will you light a candle for us and just sort of convene the space?
Sure. So I'd love for everyone to take a breath and to stretch. And just sink into this time and space. I mean, how interesting and curious. So I've lit my candle. You've allowed me to pull a card. Oh my gosh, we got eagle.
Ooh, what's that mean?
It actually goes with my money philosophy. I love it. Okay. This is the new economic prediction, the eagle. Have you become trapped in your daily routine and feel you do not know where to go and what to do next? Have you lost your sense of purpose? Eagle invites you to take a deep breath and spread your wings. When was the last time you opened them? Eagle reminds you that your spirit was born to soar to the heavens. As you contemplate choices, ask yourself, do I want to live in a chicken coop, sheltered from life, counting the regular feedings, or do I want to soar like an eagle? If your answer is the latter, then you must accept Eagle's invitation and embrace the courage that will help you choose freedom. And that's really what I want to talk about, is it's more important about freedom than money.
And chicken coop sounds pretty dreary.
Oh,
I'm not
my
sure
gosh.
anybody who chooses a chicken coop.
But some of our beliefs about money keep us trapped.
So that's such an inspiring sort of image to start with. And I'm going to bring us down immediately. I'm going to bring us down with one of the things that is happening in all of our households is that we have to spend money on things that are becoming more expensive. There's been inflation over the last several years. Now we have tariffs that are causing price variability, driving some prices up. So let's just start with how that affects everybody's sort of capabilities about decision-making around money. And Bethel, I wonder, in the conversations you're having with people who are coming to you for help, has the high cost of living and higher cost of living, how much is that coming up in your conversations?
All the time. Lots of people are coming to me because they once felt as though they were able to manage all of the expenses they have coming in and out. And now with the higher cost of living, they can't do that as easily, and they have less wiggle room in their budgets to save. And I think that is like this is just my general impression. People just have literally have less buying power. But I think that people are also kind of considering and reconsidering what their standard of living is. And I think that people feel as though they can't have the lives they once had. Oh, that sounds so bleak to start.
Well, it's changing. And I think I'm in my mid-40s. You're younger than me, Bethel. We came of age at a time when we didn't really know inflation was a thing. Mm-hmm. Mark, can you help us sort of put into context where we are at this moment in the second quarter of 2025 economically when it comes to our buying power? Like, how do you describe where we are?
Let's start with who you are, because this is the most important thing about inflation. So imagine you've got the poorest person in America at one end of the scale and the richest person at the other. When we talk about what inflation is, the simplest way to understand it is it's a tax on what we consume. So if you're at the bottom end of the income distribution, 20th percent, 40th percent, even 60th percent, up into the so-called middle class, a very large part of what you spend your money on are consumption goods. Those are food, fuel, rent, etc. And also, these things are the things that are most volatile. That is to say, they go up and they go down. But when you're hit with a big supply shock, as we were with COVID and other things, they tend to go up and then they don't really go down again. They jump to another level. Now, if you're at the other end of the income distribution and you're doing well, you, let's say, own your own home. Imagine that. You've got an inflation hedge. Mm-hmm. And as inflation pushes up prices, the value of your home actually increases in nominal terms. And you might own stocks in things like oil companies that do well when the world's kind of short oil. So what inflation does is very uneven across the income distribution. Mm-hmm. So just to finish this thought, you'll remember about 2 years ago, there was the beginning of this conversation about the official numbers of inflation and the way that people felt about it. And they were quite different. There was this idea of a disconnect. Well, a very clever journalist called John Otters, who worked for Bloomberg, had the wonderful idea of, well, the way that we study inflation is we take the Fed takes 80,000 items and tracks them and notes changes. And that's how we do this thing. And he said, yeah, but to smooth that statistically, to get to what they call core inflation, they take out the highly volatile stuff. Now, guess what that is? Food, fuel,
gas,
rents, right? Now, if you're in that bottom 40%, that's pretty much what you spend all your money on. So you're taking out all the stuff that matters most to me and is the most costly thing in my life. So John flipped it. He did anti-core. He said, what if we just look at all the volatile stuff that people really need? It's way higher. And that's why you've got these two things. It's not that people are making up the figures. The genuine big macro figure is absolutely true. But if you're in that bottom 40%, you feel it very, very differently.
That's such a good point. And also a reminder that, like, when we journalists talk about economic indicators as if we're all operating in the same economy, it's not really true.
Yeah, one way I like to put it is no one lives on an average.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, all of these things are averages. So on average, this is true. On average, yeah, but everyone lives one side or the other of the average.
That's a big one. I want to bring in a question from a listener named Kate, who right now is sitting with a big decision. Let's listen.
The big money decision that I'm struggling with right now is whether or not to get a cat. I know that doesn't sound like a big money decision, but I've always been a pets person, and my boyfriend and I, we just moved in together last September, and we got a cat this January. We were so excited, and the rescue we got her from, I guess they didn't screen her health quite properly, and she died within the month, and we were giving her kidney fluid transfusions and taking her to the vet down the street twice a week. This whole experience cost us something around $2,000. I just always pictured myself surrounded by pets, and this has been a hard reality check. And I'm trying to save for an impending crashing economy. You know, as much as people are weighing big decisions like whether to buy a house or have a kid, I am also thinking these thoughts about a cat. One from the shelter that costs, I think, $50 in adoption fees. So we will teeter on this, and it will depend, I think, on whether my boyfriend can leverage his visa status at work, because he's from Ireland. So if we get married, then he can maybe apply for a better job because he won't be on an L1 anymore. And so I might ask my boyfriend to marry me so I can get a cat.
Bethel, what do you hear there from Kate about just like how this really sad, expensive experience with her first cat is affecting what she thinks is possible?
Yeah, I mean, I hear grief. I hear longing. I mean, she said that she's always pictured herself surrounded by pets, and that she just imagined herself like with this companion, and like, I don't know, it's a dream, and you let yourself have that dream. I mean, she also has a very concrete number of how much that experience cost her. So what I hear is that she wants this, and she can have it, and that this recent experience was a traumatic one that cost a lot of money. But I mean, I think she should get the cat. It's just a matter of building, and I tell this to people even, with pets. It's you've got some time before you commit to an animal that's going to be part of your life. And then once it is, like, you're all in. That's a member of the family. But like, save an emergency fund for the animal. Keep a tracker on your fridge and build it up to a point that feels really comfortable, and know that that money is set aside for something like this happening again. Call it like kitty fund, and toss the money in there every month, and then maybe Christmas time it'll be time to pull the trigger and put down that $50 at the animal shelter.
And Mark, I mean, it might sound like this is sort of an easy call, get the cat, but I just want to return to how you were framing this. Like, are we living in a world increasingly where things like being able to pay your vet bills is a middle class comfort that's out of reach for people who otherwise would have liked to have a lot of pets around them?
Part of this is sort of the wider general trend. Let's think about why vets are so expensive. Number one, there aren't many of them. It's really arduous training. It's expensive to become a vet. And our old friend private equity has managed to buy up all the mom and pop vets and push the prices up. And that's why it's cost a lot more to do it now. But there's also something else to think about for a minute here. Cats never have a financial plan. And they get through life. They did. They really do, right? And also what our caller just said there as well, waiting for this impending doom of the economy. And there's a kind of desperate narrative of both sadness and uncertainty here, which I just think is I'm so sad to hear this, because this is someone who's obviously half of my age. And I see this in younger people, that they feel a kind of existential dread towards the world and are deeply worried about the future. And, with age comes, if not wisdom, then at least a little bit of thickness, which is, I've heard this my whole life, that the world's going to end and we're all going to crash and we're all going to burn, and yet we're still here. So, if you want the cat because the cat is an object of comfort and support, 100% do it. It's the best $50 you've ever spent. But if you think that every time that you do something for yourself like that, you then have to reinsure it for another $2,000, that's a bad way of thinking about it. Just do it and live the moment, because then you give yourself some space to actually enjoy it.
Rebecca, anything you want to add there?
Oh, gosh, I just love the do it and love the moment. I think I would say a couple of things to her. Did the cat change your life? Like, to me, an animal or any being in your life is about love and sacrifice. And that's what love is about. And the other thing really sort of piggybacks on Mark is that one experience of loss is not predictive of the next grief. But with an animal, there will be incredible love and incredible grief and money. And the world is about love and sacrifice.
I'm going to I've got a controversial opinion, and I think, Kate, the move is to get a dog. That's what I think the move is. And to get a dog that you have a friend who will take care of, who you don't have to pay when you have to travel. That's the move.
I am that friend for my neighbor upstairs. It's a great situation, because then I don't have to pay any vet bills.
Exactly. Win.
And I live with 5 horses. They're very expensive.
Yeah. In that one apartment?
Yeah.
If you are a parent, you know there just isn't time to research every single product you use in your home. Luckily, there's Blue Land. Blue Land is certified safe and clean by the EPA, and their products contain clean ingredients that are safe for the whole family. Blue Land is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for you and the planet with the same powerful clean you're used to. I like this mission. I also want to reduce single-use plastic in my family's household. And Blue Land works in a way that works for me as a parent. It's a kind of set-it-and-forget-it system. The idea is simple. They offer refillable cleaning products with a beautiful, cohesive design that looks great on your counter. Fill your reusable bottles with water, drop in the tablets, and wait for them to dissolve. Like if your hand soap is running out, let me grab that tablet and refill it with water. Do I need more laundry soap? I'll just open up my bag of tablets and pour them into my metal tin that I keep above my washer. You'll never have to grab bulky cleaning supplies on your grocery run. From cleaning sprays to hand soap to toilet bowl cleaner and laundry tablets, all Blue Land products are made with clean ingredients you can feel good about. Blue Land has a special offer for listeners. Right now, get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/DSM. You don't want to miss this. blueland.com/DSM for 15% off. That's blueland.com/DSM to get 15% off. This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states. Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast. Making financial decisions should not feel like trying to pick a place to eat with friends. Too many choices, and everyone has an opinion on what's worth it. One person says, invest in crypto. Another says, go all in on real estate. Meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out if your credit card's annual fee will ever pay off. That's where the nerds come in. NerdWallet's finance journalists do the research so you don't have to, breaking down the fine print, cutting through misinformation, and giving you real fact-based insights so you can make smart financial moves without the group chat chaos. NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast can help you get smarter about using home equity without over-leveraging yourself, and when refinancing actually saves you money and when it doesn't. Want to know if dividend stocks or growth stocks make more sense for you? Listen to the nerds. They also help decipher the real difference between ETFs and mutual funds without the jargon. Make your next financial move with confidence. Follow NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast on your favorite podcast app, and stay tuned until the end of the episode to hear the Smart Money trailer. Let's move on to a listener named Madeline, who is facing economic uncertainty at work right now.
Hi, I'm a public health researcher in my late 20s, still early on in my career, and my entire career trajectory is under attack by the current administration, and they're doing everything they can to dismantle it. I got my second degree thinking that I would be able to use public student loan forgiveness, and now I just don't know. And I knew I wasn't going to make a ton of money in this field. That's not why I went into it. But I also need to make ends meet and have financial goals and commitments for myself and my family. So I guess my question is, are there other times in history where this has happened that we can look to? How do you make the choice to continue on a career trajectory? When do you jump ship? I'm seeing all these senior researchers with decades more experience than I am leaving and starting private businesses and practices and things. And it's really discouraging and scary. I know the work is going to need to get done, but it's like, who's going to stay? Who's going to do it? And how?
Mark, I'm going to put that question to you. How do you know when your career path, the path has turned a corner that you're not sure you want to go around?
When the forces that are giving you the shakes are the things that are usually the ones that fund and protect the thing that you're doing. And that's what's going on now. The crisis in public health is entirely engineered by playing with the funding of the National Endowments of Health by the administration. And this is part of a broader war on elite research universities and basically the notion that such institutions play a public role in the United States. This is unprecedented. We don't know how far it's going to go.
So not a moment in history she can look to.
There's no prior moment where you can look to. Basically, the story of higher education has been one of expansion, One of basically moving from the level of literally primary schools and consolidation of education districts to community colleges to state colleges. And yes, there's always been the private sector and it's always been a very small part of it, but it takes up a lot of research dollars. If you have gone to do a degree in public health, you've probably gone to one of the top 50 places in the United States to do that. And there's no doubt that there's a great deal of stress in this just now because it's all on what we would call soft money. Now, she then said, I thought quite interestingly, senior people, more skills, etc., are jumping ship, doing stuff. But you've got 2 degrees. You're young. You have what's called optionality. You can do lots of other things because you're not tied down in the way that those folks are. Yes, they may have more established networks, but they're also more cemented into who they are. Your powers of reinvention at this point are far stronger than they are and far stronger than you realize. And there are many fields adjacent to what you would have done had this been a straightforward course that actually are just 2 steps away that are just as interesting, that are just as remunerative. So my story here is one of possibility, one of optionality, one of encouragement. Look around, think about who else you could be that you would be happy with.
Rebecca, when someone comes, what I hear in the way Madeline describes her current, she needs to make ends meet. She has commitments she's made to herself and her family. She has had a plan. And now she has to come up with a new vision. I think that's when a lot of people come to you. Is that right?
Well, yeah, people think life is certain.
Yeah. Well, how do you, for someone like Madeline, who is good at getting degrees and good at moving through the world in a type A way of handling things, how do you find that permission to just dream something totally new?
I often ask people to go back to when they were 8 and what did they love to do and start doing that. Again, it's a value system, and we have been taught that the goal is to have money and be safe and be certain. And the reality is life is not those things. And I just think this is an opportunity for her, but then we'd go back to what is it that you want? What is the vision for yourself? And then the question that I love to ask is, how would you recognize yourself 10,000 years from now? But one of the shaman asked me, because I was very worried about making money after I left my corporate job, and he said, you're asking the wrong question. The question is, how can I be of service? And it sounds like with her degree, she has a plan for being of service, but there's many other ways. I talked to a dramaturg yesterday on my show, Ashley Thomas, and she works with the Black Theater in Harlem. They've lost their funding. And she said, what you do is you go into a bar and you ask them to use their back room. This reminded me of you, Anna. And you take 2 rubber...
I love bar back rooms.
Yes, well, church after dark. That you take a piece of bubble gum, 2 rubber bands, and you put on a play. That the only thing, or you go to the park and you offer something for free. That what happens in these places and to create space is about creativity.
And Bethel, as a fellow spreadsheet person, when you... I love, this is why Rebecca is so helpful to me, because I will then go back to the spreadsheet and be like, oh my gosh, but there's nothing to put in this cell because I don't know what is going to happen. Like, how can you offer something to Madeline about how she can think about those commitments for herself and her family when she wants something to put in those spreadsheets to make her feel like that she's still going to be able to take care of what she wants to take care of?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking me about spreadsheets, but in my mind, as someone who made a huge career change recently, is would you still want a version of your life to look like the one you imagined? And then, I don't know, this is because I come from immigrants, but I'm like, have you ever heard of a place called Europe or Canada? Like, there could be opportunities that are not in America right now that you could look for. And if you want to stay put, if you want to stay home, follow the other advice. And if you're still thinking about PSLF, those
Public
payments,
Service Loan Forgiveness.
Public Service Loan Forgiveness, those qualifying payments are cumulative. So if you pause and go private for a little while, you can pick those up at a nonprofit, in 2029. And you have options. Like, the life is sort of long and short at the same time. The other thing to think about too is just in terms of student loans. I heard a rule of thumb recently that has stuck in my mind now. But if your loan total is less than your current income, you can pay those off if you make aggressive payments. Like, it's viable to actually do them yourself. If it is more than double your income, then go for one of the forgiveness options. And there are forgiveness options for people that are not in the public service field that happen under IDR. But check out
IDR.
Sorry, income-driven repayment.
Income-driven repayment.
Yeah, if you're in that middle space, it's a little dicey. But I think just know that the student loans aren't forever. Know that the current climate isn't forever. Know that you can think outside of the box a little bit if this is really where your heart lies. And if you can do something that's a little lateral to what you're doing now and that can still be gratifying, that's totally possible. I was very heartened by both Mark and Rebecca. All of it's very eagle themed in my mind. There's room to spread.
And to play. I like the idea of putting like 2 hours on your calendar, Madeline, to just go back to 8 and just do whatever you did. Decorate your bedroom walls, do a dance party, see what makes you feel good, as Rebecca was saying, as you go through this hard time. Let's move on to a listener named Ashley, who has a question about planning for retirement.
Hi, Death, Sex, and Money. This is Ashley. I'm 42, and I'm watching my parents start retiring, and I'm thinking, this is probably the next big milestone for my own life as well, right? Except I'm 0% prepared. I have nothing saved. I have less than nothing saved. I have 7 kids. We're a blended family. They range ages from 22 to 13. My father-in-law also lives with us and is financially dependent on us as well. And, well, I work in HR. I work with our retirement plan at work. And I feel like I should be a lot better prepared. I should know what I'm doing by now. And there's a lot of hesitancy to even engage in retirement planning and saving because of my experience with my grandpa. So my grandfather was the CFO of a medium-sized bank in his day. I don't know, 70s, 80s, that time frame. He made all the quote-unquote right money moves. He should have been fine in his later years. He should have been more than fine. But around the time that my grandmother and him were aging, needing to dip into that nest egg and really start using their retirement, it was the year of 2008. That's right. Womp womp. And I saw that this man that I kind of held in such high esteem as being the pinnacle of success and knowing what to do, I saw him scrimping, saving, not eating. It was heartbreaking to watch. And unfortunately, he passed away in a period of his life where I think he was feeling the most insecure financially. And then I see the current events, the market probably going into a recession or worse. I'm seeing my fears play out again. I'm sure experts would say, well, don't worry about it. That's such a small percentage of risk that you're going to be that age at the same time as a recession hits and you have almost nothing. But I've seen that happen. So I'm here and I'm really stuck because I don't know what to do.
Bethel, you describe some of your clients as money avoidant people, where the feelings of looking at money, their money choices, the debt they have is so overwhelming that they'd rather not do it. It sounds to me like for Ashley, there's so many big feelings around what can happen when you think you're doing the right thing and then you still lose, that it's hard to do anything. What would you say to her?
I have so many thoughts. I mean, the first thing that kind of impulsively comes to mind is like, you're not your grandfather. You're a different person. And you have time, you have options, you have choices. You could make incremental moves, maybe even 1% of a contribution to your 401k. It sounds like you have a lot of demands on your current finances, though. It's really hard to know, and this goes for your grandfather as well, like what all the right moves look like until you look at somebody's numbers specifically. And so I think I wouldn't rely on that. She has to kind of think about what's in her control and really look out for black and white thinking. But one thing that I heard from her that I hear from a lot of people is like, I should know better by now. And my question is like, how? How were you to know? Who sat you down and talked to you about it? And in the moment, was that information something you were willing to receive? Like, did it stress you out too much to hear it? And that's part of capability too. That's part of being ready to actually do it. You have to kind of take stock of what you were taught and what you weren't taught, accept that, and then begin to look at the numbers. But I think to start, I think she's got to take some of her agency back and not feel fated to repeat the fate of her loved one.
Mark, how do you think about how we ought to talk about the possibility of downward mobility and managing that fear?
Well, the thing is, it depends how you cut the numbers. Even rich people are downwardly mobile sometimes, but then they tend to come back up. And overall, even if it's incredibly badly distributed, the country gets richer over time. And yes, there are big crashes and people lose money in those big crashes, but they really are a minority of events. And the way I'd encourage her to think about this is the following. If you carry on in the path you are now, you are by your own admission have nothing and you will have nothing. So what is the worst thing that could happen if you change course and you lost money? You would still have nothing. So there's literally no risk in you trying to change course. So what I would suggest is, to the extent that you can within your budget, not put it in a 401k in some kind of passive cycle thing that they sell to you. Just go out and buy the index of all stocks, or just go out and buy stuff that's a little bit risky. Because if it all blows up and goes to zero, which by the way hardly ever happens, then you're just back to where you were, minus the stuff that you would have used on everyday stuff and it wouldn't have been an investment. And the chances are some of this is going to work out. And as that works out over time, you will get more confidence. And you will think, maybe I didn't need to be as afraid of this. Maybe I can push this forward. In fact, I would say take some big risks. You don't have a lot of money to do it. A couple of $1,000 if you can over a year or over 2 years. And just put it in something that you do some reading, figure it out where you're comfortable with. Maybe you want to put it in tech stocks. There's things called ETFs that give you exposure to entire sectors of the economy. Some are more risky than others. And just put it in and see what happens. And there'll be downs as well as ups. But history teaches us one thing, there are more ups than downs. So you can do this. You just have to, exactly as Bethel said, remember that you're not your grandfather, you're not in that economy, and you're not that person. You can write your own future here.
Rebecca, what do you want to tell Ashley?
Well, really what I'd like everyone, from the benefit of age, is it's an illusion that it's all going to be okay. It's just not sometimes. And so how do you build resilience for yourself? And as you age, it is about adaptation, modification, and release. And part of this is about release. But I would really go on the other end of Mark, which is so many of us, especially women, grow up with limiting beliefs and stories, and we have to unwind those stories before we can invest, or we are going to repeat negative patterns. So, for example, you are not worthy. Girls are bad at math. It is better to give than to receive. Money is the root of all evil. People with money are selfish, conservative, snobs. I mean, these are stories that are planted in us from the zeitgeist. And until we unhook those stories and release the fear, that's when you should invest.
You know, Rebecca, I just read a passage in a book called Loaded by Sarah Newcomb. It's called, the subtitle is Money, Psychology, and How to Get Ahead Without Leaving Your Values Behind. And she says that money is the root of all evil is another classic money message. It is actually a very famous misquote of the Bible.
Ooh.
The real beginning of the verse, according to the King James Version, is, "For the love of money is the root of all evil."
Oh.
This sends,
Bethel.
yeah, this sends a very different message.
See, the witch has to be corrected
No.
by the Bible.
No, the Bible is telling us, is giving us more permission to be more expansive about how we think about all that money is.
Look at that. This sends a very different message. The first blames money itself for the evils in the world. The second blames people with greed in their hearts. Anyway, yeah.
I love what you said, Rebecca, about things will not always turn out how you hope.
They just
but
don't.
Just to remind Ashley, you have a blended family with 7 kids. You have done something in your life where you have reimagined what love can look like and what can be possible. And you know how to do that. You've done that. So this is another opportunity to think of using those muscles.
Well, the creativity it takes to have a family of 7 children.
Oh,
Amazing.
yes. I love that. I love, and also you can do the reading that Mark suggested, and also maybe in your HR office, see if they have a financial counselor phone number you can call if you're not comfortable making those first investments yourself, and just take 15 minutes and ask for help. It feels good when your hair looks good. You can feel the confidence of when it looks just how you want it to. But if you are seeing more strands in the shower, your confidence might not be at its highest. That's why you might want to check out Hers Hair. Hers Hair treatments are made with doctor-trusted prescription ingredients and come in a variety of options, including oral and topical solutions. Getting started is simple. With a quick online hair quiz, you'll be connected with a provider to discuss your personalized treatment plan. Everything is 100% online, no pharmacy trips, doctor's office visits, or insurance required. Treatments start at just $35 a month. And the best part? You can get thicker, fuller, healthier hair and start seeing regrowth in as little as 3 to 6 months. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/DSM. That's FORHERS.com/DSM for your personalized hair loss treatment options. forhers.com/DSM. Individual results may vary. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. This episode is brought to you by Discover. If you've listened to Death, Sex, and Money for a while, you know how important acceptance is when it comes to personal growth. And you know who else is big on acceptance? Discover. You see, Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. That's a whole lot of places and a whole lot of acceptance, which is great for Discover, but even better for you. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/creditcard. I want to go to our next listener, who is named Jeff. And his problem is not one where money is scarce, but it does come to this conversation about values and money that Bethel, you and Rebecca were just talking about. We had our producer Cameron read this one.
Hi. Do you have any advice for raising difficult subjects with parents? I recently found out that my father, who has been a good and loving father to me and a grandfather to my children, is working with a company involved in fossil fuels. More than that, he has some degree of influence in the space and actually interacts with CEOs and board chairmen, etc. I find this deeply distressing and want to ask him to stop and to leave the space, or to use what influence he has to try and change it. He has also been incredibly generous over the years with supporting both me and my family financially, and I'm not sure how to talk about where that money has come from and whether or not I want to give it back in some sense if it has come from fossil fuels. In the long run, the situation is untenable, as I'm now sitting with the feeling of being ashamed of what my father does for a living. Any advice would be much appreciated.
Who has something to offer, Jeff?
I would offer Jeff not to be so harsh on his father-in-law. To satisfy that, you would need to kind of think of a world in which there is a completely set of clean alternatives to being involved in fossil fuels. And that it was your father-in-law, right?
Father.
Father.
Yes.
Right. That your father basically has decided not to embrace these choices. But those choices simply aren't there. The vast majority of modern life is powered by fossil fuels. The clothes we wear come from synthetics and plastics. The environment that we build is largely dependent on us. And yes, it would be great if we were actually seriously embracing a transition away from all of this. But practically no one is. So this problem goes much deeper than any complicity he has with these companies, which still allow us to heat our homes, which still allow us to fly to see our relatives, which power the industrial equipment that makes the world go round. So I would be a little bit more forgiving and less demanding on him, given that essentially he's just one very small part of a problem in which we're all still complicit, because there is no easy exit for anyone, even if they feel this way.
Maybe I also hear some distress about Jeff himself benefiting financially and wondering what to do, like just guilt. Not sure how to talk to him about where this money has come from, whether I ought to give it back. Rebecca or Bethel, how do you think about the origins of money and how it ought to play into our decision making of what we do with our money?
You know, inherited wealth, family wealth is very complex. And I often worked with young people who had received money from something that they necessarily didn't agree with. And I think what you're talking about, and that is the thread I heard from him, is I feel guilty about this. And then there's this sort of thread of like, do I even deserve this? And if we can work through the guilt and the deserving, then you can say, what do I want to do with the money? How do I want to pay it forward in a way that will give me peace? It's a great philanthropic opportunity to make amends.
Bethel, anything you want to add?
I for Jeff, have you successfully convinced your father of anything before?
Word.
Yeah, I think that when I read this question, it sounds like you want to try to change him, and I don't know if that's a fruitful place to begin. If you are receiving money and you have a choice now as to what you can do with that money, there are many places you can put that money to mitigate the effects of climate change, and many things you can do on an individual scale to write congressmen and change this at a macro level. It's a bigger problem than your father, unfortunately. And it could be really helpful to just think about what is actually in your control.
I want to go quickly to another question from a listener, because it's a little bit of this question flipped. It's from a listener named Jacqueline, and she is in a different class position than the family that she grew up in, and she doesn't know what to do about it. Let's listen.
Hi, Death, Sex, and Money team. I feel alone in a money problem I have, and I was wondering if you have other listeners who are feeling something similar. So essentially, my partner and I make so much more money than I had growing up that my money problems are unrelatable for my family and close friends. But when I try to talk to professional friends who make about the same as I do, I find that my value system related to wealth is different than theirs. I would love to have a support network to talk about money with, but I feel alone in ways that I don't when I want to talk about death or sex. Growing up, my family was comfortable but not wealthy. My dad managed a diner and my mom was a public school teacher. They bought a house in 2004, right before the housing market started to explode, and financed a lot of my teenage years with equity. When they taught me how to manage finances, they mostly taught me how to move debt around to avoid paying high interest rates. I thought that people who made $100,000 a year were the richest of rich well into my 20s. I started a career in the nonprofit sector, and by a fortuitous confluence of passion and luck, ended up leading the product department for a tech company. Over the course of just a few years, my salary tripled. The timelines for all my life goals were significantly shortened because now it wouldn't take decades to save the money I needed for different experiences. And even after adjusting my savings goals, I still had extra money I didn't know what to do with. So naturally, I asked my parents for advice. But when I did, it became apparent that I had become the type of person whose wealth makes them feel embarrassed about what they've been able to save in their lifetimes. So I turned to some friends for advice, and they shared they've never been afflicted with the emotion I was having, that I felt guilty to benefit from a system that would pay me so much for doing what I would consider fun work, while people like home health aides and teachers make so little by comparison. I desperately want to do something with my money that supports my family and upholds my values, but I'm struggling to figure out what it is. And not just like a one-time fix, right? I doubt this will be the last time that I face this dilemma as my financial situation evolves. And so how might I find balance between my wealth and my values, especially as somebody who grew up with far less wealth than I have now? Thank you.
I love this question. Talk about money as a symbol of all sorts of things. Mark, what would you say to Jacqueline?
I was really hoping you'd pick on someone else for this one as the kickoff. Look, I understand this on a personal level in a slightly different way, because what she's talking about is how you internalize class ressentiment. That's really
Ressentiment?
Resentment, for those who are not European.
Don't say it in French.
It sounds so much better when you say it, Mark.
It's so much better in French, trust me.
That's not how we
so
say
much
it in
better
West
in French.
Virginia.
No. But anyway, right. What happens is when you bust through class barriers, right, which actually is so much easier in the United States than it is in Europe, and that's one of the reasons I moved here, is, you can go on these accelerated currents. So no one in my family had been to college. My father was a butcher. My mother worked for literally the equivalent in the 1960s of Rent-A-Center. Right, we were poor working class people. This is it. He was a meat packer basically, and I end up at the Ivy League. Right, so do I have moments where I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, right? And it's part of it is the kind of the unique nature, I think, of American society. That American society values wealth creation and all this sort of stuff, and has no acknowledgement that it can actually have these psychological effects which are not brilliant. Like, wake up in the morning and go, I'm rich, this is awesome, right? You have all of the baggage that you come from, where you grew up, etc., etc. And when you go on these journeys, it stretches those bonds, and sometimes it breaks those bonds. Part of it is, in a sense, making you into a different person. And I think that what she's feeling is sort of, she's between, it's not the money, it's the person that she's becoming by becoming much wealthier. And perhaps that's what's making you uncomfortable, that you're being asked to be someone that you feel that you weren't in the past and you don't want to be. But I would then reflect on that and say, but if you're on this journey, it's up to you to shape where you want it to go. You don't have to be someone you don't like with money. You could be a very different person in that space. And that's surely much more healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I start off with people by coming clean with my money philosophy. And my first is just that money doesn't determine your self-worth. Your net worth doesn't equal your self-worth. So that goes for people who are deeply in debt and don't want to feel worthless, but it also goes for people who are making more money and don't want that to define them either. So if you come in with the assumption that money doesn't make you a better person, then that's a great place to begin, because then you'll know that you can go to your parents and know that it doesn't deep down mean that you are not their daughter. I can also just say that, like, there could be a point where you lose your tech job and you get laid off. I hope that doesn't happen to you. But there could be a point in time where you are then relying on your parents for help. And you can't let the money define you. You can't let the money determine how you want to be with your parents. But if the money is something that you feel as though you can't talk to them because it's too uncomfortable, then they just may not be the people that you talk to about money. And I can guarantee that even if your friends aren't in a position where they can relate to you, there are other people in this world who feel the way that you do. It's hard to find them, but you're not alone.
Rebecca, I want to know what you think about the relational piece of this, and also as a former professional fundraiser who talked with people about how to figure out what to do with the money that was extra in their lives that would give them great feeling of purpose and meaning. How do you start those conversations or even that internal thinking about what to do with the extra?
Something that you said, Bethel, about money doesn't determine your worth. But what money does do is give you more choice. It gives you more options. And where we often go in choice is down the dark road of shame and guilt. And so I would invite anyone who has extra money to go down the road of vision. And that's what you do with philanthropy. And there are two books that you may just want to put in the show notes. And they're old because I did fundraising many years ago. But a lot of people with inherited wealth, there's a woman named Tracy Gary who has a book, Inspired Philanthropy. And it's a step-by-step way of investigating your values and your legacy around money and making a philanthropic plan. And there's another woman named Rachel Freed who wrote a book called Women's Lives and Women's Legacies. And she talks about writing letters to your future self to determine what your values are, and then making your estate plan based on your values and the letters to the future.
That's so cool.
That's also a trick in The Artist Way, the Julia Cameron book that I just love. It's always so, when I picture 85-year-old Anna sitting on a porch swing, she tells me so much when she writes me that letter.
And I think philanthropy and art are so similar. And money's just a tool to open those doors.
That's nice.
In my line of work, people die in their office. They save their whole lives. They will not retire. They stay there literally until, in many cases, they literally die in the office. And then you wonder what all of those TIAA, pension contributions were for. Because you literally worked yourself to death and died in your office. And as soon as I figured this out, I decided I was never going to do this. And I can't write a note to my 85-year-old self because I want to be dead several years before, preferably from tequila.
You have a clear vision.
It's a clear vision. And I can cost that with an Excel spreadsheet right down to which resort and which margarita. So why not?
That's the way to use a spreadsheet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and my financial planner said to me, how much money do you want to have in your bank account when you die? And I was like, 0.
Yes, exactly. I had
don't want to have
the
any
same
money.
conversation. Yeah, I had exactly the same conversation. It was like, we could estimate someone of your class could live all the way to 91. I'm like, well, first of all, I'll be mental and I'll have no friends because they'll all be dead. And then how much money would you like to have at that point? It was like, seriously, none.
None.
How about I get even more at 85 and we call it quits then? That would be much better, right?
Mark, I need to introduce you to some of my 91-year-old friends. They're lovely.
All 2 of them.
Okay, we have one final question from a listener named Karen. Let's take a listen.
Hi, my name is Karen. I live in Texas. I have an adult daughter with special needs, and I am looking at moving her into a private assisted living home. And the effective cost to me is $67,000 a year. I don't have that much extra money every year. So I am cobbling together several tools and options to help pay for this. I have generous friends and family, but how they give the money, it's all different ways, whether it's tax deductible or not, or just gifts. And so I'm having to figure out a special needs trust an ABLE account, and I even started a nonprofit. And I'm just thinking that this seems really too hard. I don't understand why it has to be so complicated. And I just feel like in the United States, it's just a shame that our most vulnerable people, there's not better services for them. So that's my big money problem that I'm sorting through right now. They've called and said that they've got a room for her, and I have to get the money together.
Rebecca, what would you tell Karen?
A nonprofit, I don't think, is the answer, because you don't want to create the structure and the legal complications of serving one person. I'm hearing the idea of a trust. I feel like you as the parent get to say clearly and directly, this is what I need, and I need for it to be a gift, and it's not going to be tax deductible.
To the people who help.
To the people who help. And, if you have an opportunity down the road to show the impact of what's happening as you thank them, I think that's good. But more importantly, I think it's for you as the mom being able to clearly state what you need. You don't have to accept a gift the way it is given. You can say no.
Bethel, anything you want to add?
I would seek out community, probably seek out people who have been in your shoes or who are currently in your shoes, in your state and locally, because they probably have a lot of answers for you. And also, it sounds like there's a complicated tax situation here, and absolutely talk to a lawyer who can help you sort through this and making sure that everything's legal. And I'm sorry. I heard at the end that you wish there were more supports for the most vulnerable, and I share that sentiment.
I think that this is somewhere in my own money thinking where I can get stuck, which is I get overwhelmed by the moment of history, economic history that we are living in. Like, it is not you. There are big things that are shifting in the employment market, in the way we think about the role of government, in the volatility of so many markets. And also, each of us have to decide what we do with the money that we have or don't have. And so, like, I don't know. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I have people do especially when they're really deep in debt, and we've just gone through the exercise of calculating their net worth, adding up their assets, subtracting the liabilities, getting to this number. I ask them to consider and journal about other kinds of wealth. My sister, who is an end-of-life doula, she was a nurse for many, many years and decided to become a hospice nurse, and then became an end-of-life doula. She sent me this sheet, this framework of thinking about wealth. And financial is just one, and the others are health. The thing I've heard is when you're healthy, you have 99 problems, and when you're unhealthy, you have one. And the last one is time. So there are these other levers we can pull and think about, even when we're faced with really daunting figures. And the other thing I think about too is, and maybe this is just coming from a kid of someone who grew up in extreme poverty, but like, I can eat today. Like, and that's not something my mother could always say. Like, I have love in my life. Like, if I died at the end of the day, I'd be happy. And I wonder if there can be some day-to-day counting of the blessings that can counterbalance a lot of the difficulties of trying to navigate the harder bits.
Bethel, I'm going to leave it there for us. That was it's a very nice way for us to kind of in this conversation. Bethel Habte is a personal finance coach. You write the Substack Deconstructing Money. If someone has heard you talk and they think, I want this person to give me exercises, how do they find how to get to work with you?
You can find me at Good Bones Financial Coaching.
Good Bones.
Yeah.
Mark Blythe is a political economist and professor at Brown University. His most recent book is called Inflation, a Guide for Users and Losers. Thanks for being with us, Mark.
It's been a pleasure.
And Rebecca Auman is our go-to practical witch at Death, Sex, and Money. She hosts the wonderful podcast Voices in the River. And Rebecca, thank you for joining us. I always take something from hearing you talk.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Do you want to blow out the candle while we're all together?
Well, I have this, witches don't blow out the candle because the spirits go, but I will take a tool and dip the wick in the wax. So may it be, and so it is.
Is it weird to ask if you could pull one more card? I'm just curious
I'd love to. What do you
end
wanna
on a
know?
card as well. All right, thanks.
What did we go through? Eagle, where did you fly us to?
Oh, I know. So everybody blow into the cards. Mark's like, this is the freakiest thing I've ever.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, I have been described as a spiritual bypass.
Oh, you should come see the witch.
It's one of those ones.
Oh, you're going to love this. The circle.
Oh.
The circle reminds us we are all one. Dancers in a unified, continuous, inclusive circle. This card reminds us of the cycles of life and the evolving self, ever-changing and always connected. Human, spirit, nature, the cosmos, all intrinsically connected.
Whoa, amen.
Amen.
That's nice.
The Scottish version of that is much simpler. Life is a circle. Everyone's an idiot. No one knows what's going on, and we make the same mistakes time and time again. Every now and again, you get lucky. Enjoy it.
Again, that's Bethel Habte, Mark Blythe, and Rebecca Auman. Thank you to everyone who sent in your questions. And we've put links in our show notes to Bethel's newsletter, where you can find out more about her financial counseling, Mark's books, and about Rebecca's work as a witch and her wonderful spirit-filled podcast called Voices in the River. I was a guest earlier this year where I talked about how Rebecca's tarot predictions for me matched up with reality 1 year later. And I also mentioned my dreams for some kind of a variety show called Church After Dark. This episode was produced by Zoe Azulay and Cameron Drews. The rest of the Death, Sex, and Money show team includes Andrew Dunn. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer. Hillary Fry is Slate's editor-in-chief, and Mia Lobel is the new executive producer of Slate Podcasts. Welcome, Mia. You can support the production of our show by joining our membership program, Slate Plus. You'll get bonus conversations from our show and other Slate shows like Decoder Ring and How To, and you can also listen to all of Slate's podcasts without ads. Subscribe to Slate Plus directly from the Death, Sex, and Money show page on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or just go to slate.com/DSM Plus to get access wherever you listen. Our theme music is by the Reverend John DeLure and Steve Lewis. And if you are new to our show, welcome. We're glad you're here. You can find us and follow us on Instagram at Death, Sex, Money. And I write a weekly newsletter myself at Substack. You can sign up at annasale.substack.com. You can also reach us anytime with voice memos, pep talks, questions, critiques, or more money questions. Our email address is deathsexmoney@slate.com. We love hearing from you. I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from Slate.
Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast. Money can be confusing. Should you invest in ETFs, get a travel rewards credit card, buy a house, or just build a really fancy pillow fort?
That could work. No shame in pillow fort game. Or you could just tune in for clear, research-backed financial insights.
I'm Sean Piles, a certified financial planner professional.
And I'm Elizabeth Ayola. We're the hosts of NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast, where you bring the money questions and we bring trustworthy information backed by NerdWallet's expert analysis, without the jargon or the sales pitch.
Our nerds do the research so you don't have to. We'll help you understand your options so you can make the best decision for your situation, from optimizing your investments and maximizing credit card rewards to making big money moves with confidence.
Plus, we keep it real. No lectures, no judgment. Just tips and tools you can use to build wealth and take control of your finances. Think of us as your financial GPS, helping you navigate your money decisions and avoid expensive wrong turns.
Whether you're planning for retirement, weighing a big purchase, or just want to make your money work harder for you, we've got insights that you can use in real life.
So, if you want practical, straightforward, and actually useful financial knowledge, plus a little bit of fun along the way, follow NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Trust us, future you will thank you.
Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast.
Money can be confusing. Should you invest in ETFs, get a travel rewards credit card, buy a house, or just build a really fancy pillow fort?
That could work. No shame in pillow fort game. Or you could just tune in for clear, research-backed financial insights.
I'm Sean Piles, a certified financial planner professional.
And I'm Elizabeth Ayola. We're the hosts of NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast, where you bring the money questions and we bring trustworthy information backed by NerdWallet's expert analysis, without the jargon or the sales pitch.
Our nerds do the research so you don't have to. We'll help you understand your options so you can make the best decision for your situation, from optimizing your investments and maximizing credit card rewards to making big money moves with confidence.
Plus, we keep it real. No lectures, no judgment. Just tips and tools you can use to build wealth and take control of your finances. Think of us as your financial GPS, helping you navigate your money decisions and avoid expensive wrong turns.
Whether you're planning for retirement, weighing a big purchase, or just want to make your money work harder for you, we've got insights that you can use in real life.
So, if you want practical, straightforward, and actually useful financial knowledge, plus a little bit of fun along the way, follow NerdWallet's Smart Money podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Trust us, future you will thank you.